No role plays, just real. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader.
We've never really, as a workforce, spent a lot of time on making sure we're developing good leaders.
We'll be able to share stories, experience, mistakes, failures, successes.
This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, on this episode, I want to talk about a letter or email that we received from one of our listeners. And, we used to do this a lot, and they've been starting to pile up a little bit. We've had a lot of great things to talk about. And this one came through recently, and I think it was really important to address because it's something that I think a lot of people might find value in listening to this discussion. And so I want to read this. I took out the items that would identify this person to make it just a little bit harder in case their employees listen to the podcast as well. But I want to read this to you and I want to get your thoughts, okay?
Cool.
The email says, I have an employee who is working very hard to move into a role that will never be a fit for them unless they also dramatically change their leadership style. They currently work as a manager in a data-oriented side of the business, but they want to move into another side of the business where people, leadership, and relationships will be a much larger part of the job. This employee is also going to school to learn the skills required to do this new job. They are one of the most reliable and hardest working managers reporting to me. The problem is that their personality rubs a lot of people the wrong way, and I've had many conversations with them about this. When they get stressed, they talk to the staff in a way that comes across as scolding or talking down. I've even had staff tell me they would quit if this person became their manager. The difficult part is that I personally have not experienced or observed any of what I'm hearing from multiple staff, which makes it increasingly difficult for me to provide specific examples except for what I'm hearing from people. And so what this kind of made me think about is, there are people that we work with that we would consider to be good leaders, good managers, or bad leaders, bad managers. Same thing with employees. Does that make those managers or employees bad people, or are these separate issues where they can be coached and get better at these items? Have you encountered people in your line of work where they're just not a fit for the role, or they're bad at it? And it has led you down this path of believing that they're just not good people.
Absolutely. I think, in full transparency, it's a trap that people can just fall in because I think it's human nature. And like I've been guilty of it as well and had to kind of pull back and reassess. So like what I'm hearing is, I think we can discuss like what the description was and kind of the question that they're asking. But I think to your point, the core of the issue is if you've got let's say a leader, for instance, you've got a leader that is continuing to rub people the wrong way, or, is having relationship issues with direct reports, is you're getting this feedback from their people or others around them, and it needs to be addressed. I think the initial thought is what this person is describing is, well, let me talk to them about it. Let me try to provide them with as much coaching as possible. Let me have some conversations with them about certain situations that I've heard or been told about and try to work through it. And over time, if the behavior doesn't change, then it's either the person has no interest in changing their behavior, or many times they don't know how to do it. I like the fact that they mentioned this person's like going to school. They're trying to carry themselves on and better themselves in whatever the job is and what they're learning. But I think, it's happened to me where I've looked at somebody's bad performance and then it's crossed my mind that, maybe I just don't like them anymore. Maybe they're a bad person, right? And it's way easier to vilify somebody who is not doing a good job at work, and point out and find all the things that make you believe that they're not a good person. Because then I think when you switch that in your brain, it's much easier to write them off, to not see their value, and
Let you off the hook.
Instances, right, exactly. In some instances, hold them accountable. Like all of a sudden now it becomes a personal feeling, not something based on the business.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot to unpack here. The first thing I want to say is that I have no way of knowing what this person is writing is 100% true or just their interpretation of what's going on. So I think it's important to remember that it is possible that this person has a couple of employees that are the ones giving this feedback about this person. and that those employees, maybe the person who wrote in has a great relationship with those people, and they're taking their feedback at face value, because they said flat out they've never seen or experienced this behavior from the manager firsthand. It's only been what other people have said. And so I want to leave the door open here for the possibility that the people giving this feedback are the ones that are wrong. That the person who we're talking about here, that they are doing everything right, and that these people just don't like receiving feedback in the way they're receiving it, or they have something personal against this person. Typically, when a person has kind of deep-rooted issues like this, where they get stressed out, they talk down to people, and they scold people, it's really hard to compartmentalize that to one or two people if that's who you are. If that's your nature. And so if there's only one or two people that are hearing this from this person, it might be a different issue altogether. But if we assume that this is accurate, that this is what this person goes to, and they just happen to hide it from the person who wrote into us, and they're not seeing it outright, then I think the first thing that this employee needs to do with the manager who's having the issues is understand that if you can't see anything firsthand, it's okay to give examples of what other people are telling you, as long as you label it that. As long as you say, I haven't seen this personally, but I've heard this, and I want to see you succeed. It has to be presented from the standpoint of, I'm here as an advocate for you. I want to help you. If this is something you think is untrue or incorrect, then carry on. But if it's something that you think that it's ringing true in your mind even a little bit, then the perception might be such that you have to change this aspect if you hope to move into a role where you're leading specific people.
Yeah, no, I think the other part of it too is, I would want to know, like, are they self-aware?
Right.
As this person wrote in, they've had multiple conversations with them about these things. So is this manager saying, you know what, guilty as charged? You know what, not a great day that day. You know what, this is what happened. There was a couple factors involved. I probably lost a little bit of composure, or I said the wrong thing. Like, I own it. Let me go fix it, right? If that's the manager and that's what they see and that's what they do, I think you have you have a lot to work with, and you have the ability for them to push through some of these mistakes and some of these growing pains and things like that. I think if what they tell you is, that's not what happened, that's not the case, yada, 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 then I think you have a lot more that you have to dig into, right? You're going to have to get way more specific with the individuals that are expressing concerns. And you want to start to build more into understanding what this is about. Because again, like, is this because they're maybe a bad leader to that individual, or is this because they're a bad person and you just can't see it because they're nice when you're around? There's that element of it as well. And then, the other piece of what you were just mentioning is maybe the person who says, if that person's my manager, I'm going to quit the company. Maybe they should.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe that manager is actually doing the right work and is consistent. And to your point, is giving feedback or holding people accountable, doesn't put up with, some of the silliness. And this person says, I'm going to leave, okay. So like, I think that there's a lot to unpack there. But I think it is, important to really think through, again, are these mistakes that a leader is making as they are taking some calculated risks, or are these things that are built into their character that even after multiple coaching conversations, they continue to do them over and over again?
Right. I mean, the line in the email actually says, I've had Steph tell me they would quit if this person became their manager, which says outright this person isn't their manager. So it could just be that the person who has the problem is believing that this person doesn't have the authority to tell them what to do. They're not their manager. Why are they telling them what to do? And so if that means that the only problem is that this employee doesn't want to be told what to do by anybody who's not their direct manager, that could be a problem with that employee. As long as this person is going about it in the right way, there's nothing wrong with trying to lead people who don't report to you directly. In fact, I've always believed that you have to earn the right to lead people. The title doesn't give it to you. You have to earn it. And people who don't have the title can earn it just as easily as people who have the title. And so if this person wants to be a leader of these people, part of it is incumbent upon them, because if they're able to lead without the title, then they are definitely able to lead with the title. And part of it is incumbent upon these employees to understand, kind of separate, is my problem here that I'm being told the wrong thing? Or is my problem here that I just don't believe this person has the authority to lead me? And those are two different conversations to have. The other thing I want to talk about too is this is possibly an opportunity for a 360 feedback cycle. And I'm not sure if our listeners may or may not know what that is. So do you want to explain what a 360 feedback cycle is, and see how maybe this might be a great opportunity for that?
Yeah, it's funny because as you were kind of talking through that, I was thinking about exactly the same thing. I think that there's more information that has to be pulled to better understand where this leader stands. And so a 360, assessment is where you have an anonymous, questionnaire where you have the employee actually select people that report directly to them. You have them select people that are their peers, and then you get feedback from their direct boss, maybe 1 or 2 levels up. And then what you would also do as their direct boss is you would also select a few people randomly, or people that you would like to get their insight from, and send them the assessment as well. And the ones that I've done and that have been done for me are pretty lengthy. I mean, I like some of them being like 100 questions, and kind of ranking people and what are towering strengths and things like that is usually what you see in the fully baked out 360 assessment. It doesn't have to be all of that, but the intent of it is that you get anonymous feedback from all levels around this leader, to be able to aggregate that information and provide them with thematic feedback on how they show up in all of their relationships professionally at work. It's the collective of, how do, a random selection of 5 or 6 employees that report to them feel about what are their strengths, what are their opportunities, what do they appreciate, what are the things they feel they could work on. Same thing if they have some peers that they would work with from time to time. And then, of course, the direct manager. So it is very helpful when you're trying to work with leaders on making sure that how they see themselves is aligned with how others see them. And it's very helpful with defining blind spots and things that maybe you didn't really think about as opportunities or issues, but the way they play out with others is something that you need to address and work on.
Yeah, I've loved 360 feedbacks in my career. I've reached out to people for kind of informal ones where it's still anonymous, but the feedback goes directly to me, not because of any desire to move up or to get promoted, but just as a gut check on what's going on. Do I have my thumb on the pulse of what people feel about me, my peers, my direct reports in different roles? I've gone through that a few times because sometimes I question my own level of self-awareness about what's going on, especially if I have a title. If I don't have a title, I feel like I'm pretty good about, kind of knowing whether or not people trust me or want to follow me, because without a title, you can tell. I mean, it's a lot easier to tell. But sometimes I feel like I move too quickly and lose sight of whether or not people are following me because I have a title, or if they're following me because they actually believe in what I've said, and that I've built belief around something, around a vision, a shared or collective vision. And those 360 feedback assessments can really help me figure out, like what you said, blind spots that maybe I didn't think about. So I think this is a great example of an opportunity for this manager. And I think the person who wrote in will discover quite a lot about simply this person's reaction to the suggestion of doing a 360 feedback.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And like I said, I've seen a lot of value in them. And I think that, especially in situations like this, when you are seeing that there may be some, misalignment on what you have observed as a leader, and then what people are telling you about the person that you're observing, especially when it comes to their, responsibility of leading people. Even if you're moving, from one department to another department or something like that, if you have direct reports, the way you treat them and get work done is applicable across the board. And so I can understand that in some environments, the jobs may be more tactical, or they may be more, structured with systems and processes. I get that. where maybe another job is more of the vision inspiration piece, and maybe that's what they're saying in their question is like, look, we're moving from a space where you spend most of your time doing validation checks and making sure that everybody is doing the pieces they're supposed to be doing, and you really work as a leader who is managing process, and now going into a role where your main objective is to empower and inspire others. That is definitely two different things that need to be worked on, and making sure that because you can't add that type of system and process into a space where you're trying to inspire people. It's just I've never had success with that. I don't know many people or any leaders that have been really great at saying, here's the exact structure, here's exactly what I want you to do. Do not deviate from that one bit, and this is how we get things done. Now feel inspired, right? Like
Right.
I've never been able to do that. I've never really been able to see anybody do that. So I could completely understand that would be, that would be the task at hand. But I think that to your point, in my experience, any way that you can get more feedback across the board is super helpful if you have somebody like kind of what they're explaining, which is they're a learner, they want to get better, they're looking to better themselves. Again, the only piece that's missing for me is the person has to be self-aware, and they have to be self-motivated to want to improve and say, yep, that's an opportunity for me. I'm going to go fix it and make it right. If they have that piece, then a lot of this work can happen. If they don't have that piece, they don't see it in themselves, if they're not self-aware, it makes this work very, very difficult.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think, too, that it's very important here that the person who wrote in, if they want to suggest to this other manager a 360 assessment, that they approach it from a place of advocacy for the success of this person. They can't approach it trying to validate anything or debunk anything. They can't say, let's do a 360 because I want to prove all these people wrong, or let's do a 360 because I want to prove all these people right. It's, hey, let's do a 360 because I know we've had conversations about this aspect before, and if you're going to move into this role, you need to be great at it, so we need to see how far you've come on these things that we've talked about in the past. The best way to do that is to talk to the people around. So you have to go in there with no preconceived notions and no appearance that you have a dog in the fight, not one in support for or against this person, but rather just, I want to see what the truth is. I want to see what the information is, and let's see how much you actually want to see what the truth is too. And let's do this. And you can act just as surprised with the person right along. If they start getting really negative feedback, then it becomes a standpoint of, oh, we've talked about this. Well, I mean, why do you think there's a disconnect? But that's done after the results are in. They have to feel like you are there to facilitate the process, not that you're trying to prove anything right or wrong.
Yep, I completely agree. And with that, it brings us to this episode's 1 Minute Hack.
The 1 Minute Hack.
All right, this episode's 1 Minute Hack is about 360 assessments and how you can do them from an easy, organic standpoint that can be done quickly with the people you work with, and something that's less formal. So I want you to get out your pen and your paper, and I want you to write down 3 questions. And I'm going to use my own name just for expediency here. Write down these questions. What is one thing Chris does that you appreciate when it comes to his leadership? What is one thing Chris can do as a leader to make your job easier? And what is one thing Chris should do differently as a leader that would inspire your best work? If you have these questions written down and you ask some of the peers, the direct reports, and even yourself to answer these questions when it comes to a person who is looking for positive or negative or constructive feedback from their people or from their peers, something kind of like a gut check or an assessment that kind of lets them feel like they have an accurate thumb on the pulse of what's going on in their relationships, their leadership style, etc. This is a way you can do this organically and anonymously, so you can sit down with that employee and give them feedback from the group that they can rely on it being anonymous. They can rely that their answers are going to be kind of aggregated with everybody else, and you can have these conversations. If the answers that you give fall in line with the person who's asking for the feedback, then you know the level of self-awareness is high. The things that have to be worked on are going to be clear and obvious, and the things that they're doing well, they can continue to do well. If a lot of things are being said that end up being surprises, then there's some work that needs to be done on that employee's self-awareness, but you will also still know how the team feels about them, their direct reports, and their peers.
No, I think it's a great 1-minute hack. And, anytime we have an opportunity to provide examples of things that people could literally apply today or tomorrow, I think it's super helpful. And I've done this exact thing with employees and with leaders and with managers. And quite honestly, sometimes in real time, when having some dialogue with somebody about like this example in the question they sent to us, I say, you know what? Let's go find out right now. Like, let's go out here. You know what? Like, come on out here and let me go ask some people and see what they say. And why don't you go ask some people and see what they say? And let's meet over here and find out. And just being able to have an element where, like, look, we're trying to make sure that we're aligned on what it is that you bring as valuable to our team, and making sure that you're aware of it, but also, like, what are the things that you need to work on to make sure that you can lead this team effectively, regardless of title or opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think that if you are planning on doing this, you need to have the trust and the relationships with the people you're asking for this feedback from. And so because the veracity of the answers is of the utmost importance here, if you're asking people and they're thinking, I need to lie or fudge this information because I don't trust that it's going to be anonymous, or I don't trust that I'm not going to be thrown under the bus, then you failed before you even started. So you need to make sure you have those relationships. And if you doubt that even a little bit, then you need to take steps to make sure that the trust is there, whether it be an anonymous form online, a piece of paper they can fill out and not put their name on and mail to you, whatever it takes to make sure that the information you're getting is accurate and what they actually believe is absolutely the most important thing.
Yep, I completely agree. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you all next time.